I don't know how it started. I was 32, living alone in my downtown apartment. It felt like a refuge after my breakup. The bricks were old, the floors creaked, and I found comfort in the vintage light fixtures. I worked as a freelance graphic designer and wanted some connection online. Maybe I just wanted to distract myself from the loneliness. One evening, after a long day, I got a friend request from an account I didn't recognize. The profile picture was blurry, but I couldn't help but notice the posts looked like mine. I felt a mix of intrigue and unease, but I accepted the request. Something felt off, but I pushed that thought aside. In the days that followed, the unknown account began commenting on my posts. It was strange. The comments were accurate, referencing private moments I had shared only with my close friends. I tried to brush it off as paranoia, but I felt a knot in my stomach every time I saw their name pop up on my phone. At first, it was small things, my trip to the art exhibit last month or our shared love for certain bands. It felt wrong, like a shadow creeping closer. I glanced at my phone with a racing heart but tried to shake it off. Then it escalated. I saw my photos copied and posted on that account. They were my moments, twisted into something else. Each repost made my stomach churn. I stopped posting, hoping the stranger would fade away. But they didn't. As I pulled back from social media, messages started coming in. Vague and unsettling, they made my skin crawl. "I see you," one read. "We're the same," said another. I blocked the account, but more kept popping up. It was like a game to them. I felt completely exposed. Panic settled in my chest. One evening, I was exhausted and plopped down on my couch, staring at my phone. I needed to find answers. I opened my messages and froze. A new one appeared. "Why do you hide?" I should have ignored it, but something compelled me to reply. That was a mistake. I felt a chill in the air as if an icy hand gripped my spine. Glancing around my dimly lit living room, I fighting a sinking feeling. Then it hit me. The message came again. "Look behind you." I whipped around. My heart was racing, but there was nobody there. My breath quickened. I couldn't make sense of it. Instinct told me to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. I was scared, but I opened the messages again. I thought maybe it was a cruel joke. I couldn't shake how wrong it all felt, how deep this was getting. I finally replied, saying I wanted it to stop. Silence fell for a moment, but then my phone buzzed. "I'll never leave." Those words sent a jolt through me. I dropped my phone, my heart pounding. I took a step back, feeling eyes on me. The walls seemed to close in. 3 years. I didn't understand why I had lived this false life, caught in a web of my creation. I thought I wanted connection, but it turned out to be a nightmare. I didn't sleep that night. The words, "I'll never leave," echoed in my mind. Anxiety wrapped around me like a thick blanket, making it hard to breathe. I needed to escape this digital nightmare, but I didn't know how. The next day, I decided to reach out to my closest friend, Karen. She had always been my sounding board. As I sat on my bed, staring out the window at the bustling street below, I wondered if I could even explain what was happening. Karen came over an hour later. I greeted her with a tight smile, still feeling the weight of dread in my chest. "What's going on?" she asked, noticing my tension. I hesitated, worried I might sound crazy. But I needed her help. "It's about social media," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "There's this person who's been stalking me online." I quickly recapped the friend request, the comments, and the messages, watching her face shift from confusion to alarm. "Have you thought about going to the police?" she suggested. I shook my head, fear tightening in my throat. "It's just online?" I muttered, but deep down I knew it felt more than that. We spent the afternoon discussing strategies. Karen suggested I change my privacy settings and take a break from social media altogether. That made sense to me, but part of me felt like I'd just be hiding. Time passed, and we eventually moved to the couch, trying to talk about lighter things. I needed a distraction, however temporary. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. I felt my heart drop as I picked it up. I dreaded opening the message, but I had to know. It read, "I can see you." In a panic, I looked around the apartment, searching for any sign of an intruder. The shadows felt deeper, the room quieter. "What's wrong?" Karen asked, her brow furrowed in concern. I showed her the message, and her face paled. "This is getting out of hand," she said. "You can't keep this to yourself. You need to tell someone who can help." But just then my phone chimed again. "You can't hide. Not forever." I wanted to respond, but my fingers froze above the screen. Then something caught my eye from the corner of the room. A dark shape darted outside my window. I felt my pulse quicken. Did I imagine that? The walls felt like they were closing in again. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me, somewhere hidden just outside. I looked at Karen, who seemed to sense my fear. "Stay here," she said firmly. "I'll check outside." I shook my head, panic rising. "No, wait." But she was already moving toward the door. Just before she opened it, my phone buzzed again. I glanced down and dread pooled in my stomach. I'm already inside. That's when everything went dark. I jolted upright in bed, gasping for air. The darkness around me felt heavy, like an impending storm. Cold sweat dripped down my back as I struggled to regain my bearings. I was alone. I blinked hard, trying to focus. The glow of my phone screen filled the room, illuminating the shadows that had seemed to swallow me whole. I clutched my phone tightly, ready to flee if I had to. Then I remembered Karen. My heart raced as I swung my legs over the side of the bed, looking for any sign of her. "Karen?" I whispered, my voice barely above a breath. Silence answered me. I tiptoed to the door, peeking out into the hallway. "Karen?" I called again, louder this time. Still nothing. Panic bubbled in my chest. Had something happened to her? The fear felt suffocating, almost paralyzing. I took a deep breath and stepped outside my room, scanning the living area. Everything seemed normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling of dread lurking beneath the surface. As I moved toward the living room, I could see my phone light still glowing from the couch where I had left it. I dashed over, hoping to find a missed call or a message that explained Karen's absence. That's when I noticed the window. The curtains were open, swaying gently, as if someone had just stood there. I shivered, the cool air brushing against my skin. My heart raced as I approached the window, peering outside. The street below was quiet, but shadows danced across the pavement. I saw some graffiti on the wall opposite my building. It was messy but clear enough. "I'm watching you." The words twisted in my stomach like a knife. Who had done this? Who had been watching? I stepped back from the window, heart pounding. What was happening? I grabbed my phone, ready to message Karen, but then I hesitated. What if this was all part of the game? I didn't want to drag her further into whatever this nightmare was. I decided to look for Karen. If I could find her, maybe I could understand what was going on. I rushed down the hall, peeking into the bathroom, then the kitchen. No sign of her. Then, I remembered the small storage closet at the end of the hallway. My breath hitched as I approached, hopeful and terrified at the same time. I reached for the door, my hand trembling. That was when I heard a soft sound from within. My heart raced as I pushed the door open. Inside stood Karen, panic written across her face. She started, but before she could finish, she looked past me. "There's someone outside, and they're not alone." My blood ran cold. I turned to look, and that's when I saw them. Figures were lurking in the shadows, just beyond the reach of the streetlight. I felt a chill run down my spine. "Run," Karen whispered, her eyes wide with fear. And that was the moment when I knew we were trapped in a nightmare together, with no way out. I grabbed Karen's hand, my heart hammering in my chest. "Where do we go?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. She looked around frantically, her blue eyes glinting with terror. "Back to your room," she breathed. "Lock the door." We darted down the hallway. The figures outside were still and silent, like dark silhouettes waiting for the right moment to spring into action. I slammed the door shut and locked it, my hands shaking. "Do you have a plan?" I asked, my voice trembling. She shook her head, her breath quickening. This wasn't just another silly game anymore. This felt real, and it felt deadly. We huddled near the bed, trying to make ourselves as small as possible. I could hear my heartbeat echoing in my ears. Just then, we heard a noise. Footsteps outside. They were coming closer, slow and deliberate. "Do you think they know we're in here?" Karen whispered. I didn't want to think about it. I glanced at my phone, hoping for a signal, but the screen remained dark and lifeless. Suddenly, we heard a voice not clear, but low and menacing. "You can't hide forever." The voice sent chills down my spine. I squeezed Karen's hand tighter, trying to reassure both of us. I needed to think. What if we start yelling for help? I suggested, though I knew it was a long shot. Maybe someone will hear us. Karen shook her head fiercely. What if they're just waiting for us to make a sound? The footsteps stopped, and I held my breath. I peered through the small gap in the curtains, but the street was too dark to see anything except for shadows shifting. Then I noticed a glint of light reflecting from something metallic. A brief flash. I leaned in closer. "Karen, look," I whispered urgently. "I think they have weapons." Her eyes widened. "We have to get out of here. Now." But where would we go? I felt trapped, cornered. If I ran outside, the figures would see us. I was about to suggest climbing out the window when my phone buzzed a loud, chaotic sound that shattered the tense silence. Karen and I froze. "Is that?" I grabbed my phone, and my heart sank. It was a message from an unknown number. I opened it with shaky hands. "Don't worry. I'm close by. Just follow the plan." I looked at Karen, fear creeping into my bones. What plan? Who is this? But before she could answer, we heard the doorknob rattle. My stomach dropped. They were trying to get in. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered and went out, leaving us in pitch blackness. "Stay quiet," I whispered, feeling panicked and lost. I fumbled for my phone again, praying for some form of light. The rattling stopped. Then suddenly, a loud crash echoed. Something or someone was breaking through. "Help!" I screamed without thinking. Before I knew it, the door burst open and shadows poured in, silhouetted against the darkness. I felt Karen's hand slip away from mine as the figures advanced. That was when I realized I'd stumbled into a danger I hadn't prepared for, and there was no turning back now. The shadows swarmed into the room, and panic shot through me like a live wire. I scrambled back, but the corner of the bed stopped me. I could hear the figures moving closer, their heavy breathing breaking through the tension. "Karen!" I yelled, but I couldn't see her. The darkness had swallowed her whole. I felt utterly alone, the weight of terror settling over me. What were they planning? My mind raced, grappling with the worst possibilities. My phone buzzed again, a soft light flickering. I fumbled with it and glanced at the screen. "Stay put. I'm almost there. Read the new message." Just then, I heard a loud thud followed by a low growl. One of them was angry, threatening. My heart raced even faster. I had to do something, anything. I looked around for a weapon. Then I spotted it, my lamp. I lunged for it, keeping my phone tucked under my arm for light. I ripped it from the bedside table and held it like a club. Footsteps shifted, and I felt a presence to my left. I swung the lamp up, prepared to strike, but the figure darted back into the shadows. "Do you want to play?" A voice taunted. It was the same voice from before, laced with amusement. "Where's Karen?" I shouted, unsure if they even cared. "Right here," the voice replied, and suddenly I heard a muffled sound from the side of the room. It was Karen. My heart sank. What had they done to her? "Let her go!" I screamed, desperation rising in my throat. A knot of anxiety twisted inside me. I could feel the figures getting closer, their intentions dark. The light from my phone illuminated one of their faces, malevolent, with a sinister smile. "Come out and play or she gets hurt," the voice said. My mind raced. I couldn't let anything happen to her. "Just tell me what you want," I shouted, holding the lamp steady, waiting for a chance to strike. He laughed softly, the sound chilling. "We want you to join us. Just think of the fun we can have together." I felt my stomach turn. This wasn't a game. This was real, and these people were twisted. I glanced toward the direction of Karen's voice, trying to gauge where she was. "Karen, can you hear me?" I shouted, hoping against hope that she was still conscious. "I'm here." Her voice was faint, filled with dread. The figure in front of me took a step closer, and I swung the lamp wildly, but he dodged it easily. "This is pointless," he said. "You can't fight us." I was running out of time and options. I couldn't let them take her. I had to think fast. That message on my phone loomed in my mind. Someone was close by. That S when I decided. I had to buy myself a moment. "You don't have to do this," I shouted, dropping the lamp and pretending to surrender. "We can work together. I can help you." The figure hesitated, his confidence wavering for just a moment. I was sure it was a risk, but I had to take it. Maybe, just maybe, I could reach Karen or find a way to escape. But as I saw their eyes narrowing, I realized my time was running out. "Just let her go," I pleaded. And then everything shifted. My phone buzzed again, lighting up the room. The message read, "Get ready. Now." I had no idea what was about to happen, but I knew we were about to find out. I braced myself as the figures shifted closer. The air thickened with tension, and I could feel my heart pounding like a war drum. Suddenly, amidst the shadows, a loud crash echoed from the hallway outside. The unmistakable sound of someone or something forcing its way into the house made the figures stop and turn. "What was that?" one of them hissed, the amusement in his voice fading to annoyance. He glanced back at me with a predatory glare. "Maybe a friend?" I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. My mind raced to the message on my phone. Surely whoever was watching was only moments away. Just then, a shadow moved in the doorway. I squinted, heart racing, desperate to catch a glimpse. A silhouette emerged, small and nimble, darting into the room with speed I hadn't anticipated. "Hey, get back!" I shouted, instinctively stepping in front of the intruder, my hands raised. I didn't know who it was, but I wasn't about to let them get hurt. "Step aside," a voice ordered, sharp and clear. It was a woman, someone familiar. My breath hitched as I recognized her. It was Sarah, my neighbor. "What are you doing here?" I cried out, relief rushing over me. Her presence ignited a flicker of hope, but I knew we weren't safe yet. "Get Karen," she said, pointing toward the source of her muffled cries. "I'll hold them off." Before I could respond, Sarah lunged at the nearest shadow, tackling it to the ground with surprising strength. The figure grunted, caught off guard. I could hardly believe what I was seeing. "Go, now," she shouted, urgency coursing through her words. I didn't waste a second. I turned and rushed toward Karen's voice. Sunlight broke through the window, casting a faint glow, reminding me there was still some light left in this nightmare. "Karen, I'm coming," I called, my eyes scanning the dim room. I spotted her, tied up in the corner, the ropes digging into her wrists. I hurried over, panic rising as I knelt beside her. "Are you hurt?" I asked, quickly working to untie her. She shook her head but looked frightened, her eyes wide. "Just get me out," she whispered, glancing toward the scuffle behind me. I felt the tension shift in the room. "Come on," I breathed, yanking at the knots with all my strength. My hands were shaky. I could feel time slipping away. The sounds of struggle intensified, and I could see Sarah wrestling with the figures just as more shadows spilled in from the hallway. "Move," I shouted, finally freeing Karen. She climbed to her feet, still looking dazed, but the urgency around us snapped her back to reality. We bolted toward the doorway, but a figure lunged, blocking our path. I barely ducked out of the way, grabbing Karen's wrist and pulling her along just in time. Everything felt chaotic. Yet, through it all, I discovered something: a surge of determination. I'd fight if it meant keeping Karen safe. As I dragged her toward the front door, I heard a deep voice shout from behind us, "You can't escape." Then I noticed a glimmer of metal at the foot of the doorway. A knife, gleaming ominously in the dim light. My heart raced at the sight. "Get that," I yelled at Karen. She hesitated, but I could see the resolve hardening in her eyes. She turned back, scrambling for the knife as I pushed through the doorway. If we could arm ourselves, maybe we had a chance. But would it be enough? And as the figures closed in, I feared more than just losing Karen. I feared the darkness that had come alive in my home. The moment we burst out of the room, I felt a rush of adrenaline. I dragged Karen behind me, glancing back just in time to see the figures regroup. The tension hung thick in the air, but doubt crept in. Would we really make it out? What do we do? Karen asked, her voice quaking. Just stick with me, I managed to say, though I was terrified. I spotted the front door, only a few feet away. Each step felt like a risk, like we were running into the mouth of a beast. A loud crash reverberated from the hallway as we neared the door. I hesitated. What was that? I whispered, dread knotting in my stomach. Keep going, she urged, glancing back nervously. I hurled myself against the door handle, yanking it down with all my strength. It wouldn't budge. My hands shook as I threw my weight against it again and again, panic escalating. If it didn't open, as if answering my fear, the door creaked open in a sudden release. Hollow sunlight flooded the entryway, and freedom beckoned. We sprinted outside, the cool air hitting my face like a slap. Where do we go? Karen cried, looking fearfully around the empty street. Behind the car, I shouted, pointing to my parked vehicle. We ducked behind it, breathing heavily. I could hear the harsh panting of our breaths overshadowed by the chaos inside. But our brief reprieve didn't last long. They'll find us, I said, anxiety clawing at me. Right then, I felt something sharp prick at the back of my mind, a nagging thought. We couldn't hide for long. We needed a plan. Wait, I said, looking at Karen. The knife. Did you get it? She nodded, but her expression faltered. I dropped it. I was scared. My heart sank. Without a weapon, we stood even more defenseless. And with every second, I could feel the darkness closing in. Okay, listen, I said, staying low behind the car. I'll distract them. You make a break for the neighbor's garage. They might have something we can use. But what if no buts? Trust me, I said, trying to quell the tremor in my voice. I glanced around nervously. Just wait for my signal. Another crash echoed from inside the house, followed by a booming voice. They're outside. Get them. I braced myself, knowing I was committing to something reckless. I took a deep breath, preparing to stand up, feeling my heart thundering in my chest. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps approached. They were fast, moving toward the door we'd just escaped. This was it. I shot a quick look at Karen and shouted, "Go!" I sprang up, bolting toward the sound. "Hey, over here!" I yelled, drawing their attention away. As I ran, I glanced over my shoulder. I saw shadows emerging from the doorway. They hadn't seen Karen. I prayed she was darting to safety. But my relief was short-lived. I felt hands grab me from behind. Terror surged through me as I struggled to break free. "Let go!" I shouted, but my voice was swallowed in the chaos. I glanced back, and my heart sank as I saw one of the figures looming above me. A wicked grin spread across his face. It felt like the world around me was collapsing as I grappled with him. Then I caught a glimmer of something shining in his hand. That wasn't just a knife. It was something worse. I had to escape. But with each second, my chances dwindled. I threw my arms back, trying to push against the grip that held me tight. Adrenaline flooded my system. My mind raced through every possible escape route. The figure's grip tightened, and I felt a visceral panic grip my throat. I kicked wildly, hoping to land a blow, but my movements were clumsy. "Stop squirming," he hissed through clenched teeth, his grip becoming more painful. I couldn't let this be the end. I had to fight back. In one desperate move, I ducked low and twisted my body to the side. I felt his hands slip for just a moment, and that was enough. I broke free and sprinted forward, but my instincts had only taken me a few steps before I collided with something solid. I stumbled back, disoriented, and jetted my eyes around. It was a car. Not my car, but parked right beside it, the neighbor's truck. The familiar fear pulsed through me, but the sound of pursuit behind me spurred me back into action. I dove behind it, hoping to buy myself a few moments. I crouched low, my breath coming in sharp gasps, trying to listen for their footsteps. Just then, I heard something over the chaos. A muffled voice calling out from the side of the house. "Search the cars. They can't have gone far." The tension knotted up tighter in my stomach. They were so close. Where was Karen? Did she make it to the garage? With no time to spare, I pulled myself to my feet and peeked around the truck. The driveway was empty, but I could see the figures moving through the yard, searching. They were scattered, but their determination was clear. I had to find Karen and get away, but I couldn't just run out without a plan. I made my way to the truck's bed, hoping to use it as cover. Each step felt like a gamble. If I was seen, I was done for. As I climbed in, I scanned the area. My heart raced as I spotted the neighbor's garage door ajar. That had to be where Karen went. Felt like a lifeline. But just as I took a breath to gather my nerve, I heard a loud bang, a door slamming shut. I flinched, glancing toward the house. One of the figures was shouting angrily, frustration evident in his voice. They went that way. I saw them. Panic surged. They knew we were nearby. I needed to act quickly. I could either stay hidden and wait for them to come to me or risk a run for the garage. The thought of Karen alone made my decision for me. I took off from the truck, darting toward the garage. The door stood slightly open, and I pushed my way through, barely making a sound. Karen, I whispered fiercely, desperation leaking into my voice. I didn't hear an answer, just the ominous creak of the door swinging wider. My heart sank. I was in the garage, but where was she? In a moment that felt like an eternity, I glanced around. Tools were scattered around, but nothing that could protect us. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of something glinting on the floor. That S when I saw it. A knife glimmering under the workbench. But before I could reach it, light flooded the entrance. Someone was there. I froze in place, heart thrumming in my ears as the shadow filled the doorway. The figure was tall, silhouetted against the harsh light pouring in from outside. I held my breath, praying they wouldn't see me crouched behind the workbench. Karen? The voice was low and gruff, sending chills down my spine. It wasn't a friendly tone. I wanted to scream, to call out for my friend, but fear kept me silent. Come on. I know you're here. The voice called again, louder this time. I peered cautiously around the edge of the bench, my heart sinking as I recognized the intruder. It was the same man who had grabbed me earlier, his face filled with a twisted mix of anger and satisfaction. Where's the other one? He demanded, scanning the garage. I ducked back behind the workbench, praying he wouldn't come any closer. Suddenly, a noise from beyond the garage caught my attention, a faint rustling, followed by a soft whimper. It was Karen. She had to be hiding nearby. I clenched my jaw, heart racing. I couldn't leave her alone to face him. Stop playing games, he shouted, frustration boiling over. You can't hide forever. I had to do something. I glanced to the side where that knife lay just out of reach. If I could grab it and get behind him, maybe I could give us a chance. My hand trembled as I reached out, but the sound of Karen struggling sent me into overdrive. I took a deep breath, my body tensing as I sprang out from behind the workbench. The man's eyes widened in surprise, but I didn't wait to see his reaction. I lunged for the knife, gripping the handle tightly. Get away from her, I shouted, letting fear propel my words. He turned sharply, the control slipping from his face. But I was slower than I thought. In a heartbeat, he lunged towards me, his hand reaching out. I raised the knife defensively, but his outstretched hand caught my wrist before I could swing. We struggled, the blade dangerously close to him, yet it felt like I couldn't muster any strength. Fool, he spat, forcing the knife down. My legs gave way as I fell back, and the knife clattered to the floor. I felt a rush of cold fear creep into my bones. I was exposed now, vulnerable. But then something unpredictable happened. From behind me, I heard a loud crash and a scream. Startled, the man turned just as Karen burst into view, swinging a heavy wrench she had grabbed from a tool rack. It connected with his side, and he stumbled back, but he quickly regained his balance, eyes narrowing at her betrayal. You shouldn't have done that, he snarled, advancing on her with a furious intent. Run, Karen, I yelled, scrambling to my feet. I had to act fast before he retaliated. As the chaos unfolded, I noticed a window at the back of the garage. It was small, but if we could get there, we might have a chance. This way, I shouted, gesturing toward the opening. With adrenaline coursing through me, I made a dash toward the window. But just as I neared it, a hand caught my shoulder, pulling me back. I gasped. The man was on me again, his grip like iron. Nowhere to go, he hissed. Then everything went dark. The darkness swallowed me whole. But a strange sound pierced through my fog, a distant scream mingled with the sound of shattering glass. I blinked against the void, the weight of fear wrapping around me, heavy and suffocating. A moment later, the grip on my shoulder released, and I stumbled back to consciousness, my breaths shallow and frantic. I blinked against dim light, piecing together my surroundings. I was back in the garage, and the chaos felt both distant and immediate. My heart pounded as I turned, searching for Karen. Karen, I called, hoarse and desperate. Suddenly, the shattering noise rang out again, and I turned toward the door. The figure was gone, leaving a gaping hole where the window had been, the faint light washing over the floor like an invitation. Karen's terrified face emerged from behind a nearby shelf, eyes wide with fear and triumph. "I saw you. Are you okay?" "Not sure," I croaked, still catching my breath. "Is he gone for now?" She pointed toward the hole in the window. "We have to move now." The urgency seized me. I darted for the window, glancing back at the garage door, expecting him to come crashing back through any moment. "Let us go." I reached through the opening, feeling the cool air brush against my skin, a stark contrast to the chaos inside. I climbed through, pulling myself up and down, every nerve ending tingling with panic. Karen followed closely behind, scrambling through just as I hit the ground outside. "Where do we run?" Her voice was edged with fear, and I felt it too. Anywhere but here. The street lay before us, deserted under the waning daylight. Memories flooded back to the nights spent away from the world outside, and I felt the weight of isolation settle on my shoulders. But there was no time. Gone were the comforts of home. Now we were fleeing for our lives. We sprinted down the block, eyes darting for any sign of aid, of escape. The shadows stretched longer in the fading light, and dread seeped into my bones. Behind us, I could hear a distant shout, a voice that echoed with unyielding rage. They were still coming. "Head to the park," I shouted, pointing down the street. It was a familiar place, open, visible. We needed space to breathe and regroup. As we turned the corner, I could see the outline of trees, their branches clawing at the dusk. But just as freedom seemed to beckon, the ground trembled beneath my feet. I glanced back, adrenaline twisting in my gut, as I saw the figures emerge from the shadows, moving like wraiths. "Faster," I urged, pushing Karen ahead of me, but the park felt like a distant dream, slipping through my fingers. We burst through the entrance, panting. I scanned the expanse, searching for something, an exit, an ally, but the familiar streets lined with trees seemed foreign now, dark and daunting. "Where do we go?" Karen gasped beside me, glancing back. I could see the shadows elongating, creeping closer. "There." I pointed toward the labyrinth of hedges leading deeper into the park. "We can lose them in there." We ran, weaving in and out of the bushes, hoping to shake off the pursuers. But with every turn, a cold knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Where was the edge of the park? Where was safety? My breaths came in ragged gasps, fear urging me on. The sound of footsteps faded slightly around us, but I knew they wouldn't stay lost for long. "We have to keep moving," I whispered, desperate. Then, unexpectedly, we entered a small clearing. Moonlight flooded the space, illuminating a tangled mess of overgrown grasses and weeds. It was quiet here, eerily so. I turned to Karen, my heart racing not just from the fear of our pursuers, but from the uncertainty of everything around us. "What do we do?" she whispered, panic palpable. "I don't know," I admitted, my voice barely a murmur. I just need a second." And then, without warning, the air shifted. A soft rustle to our left caught my attention, and I spun toward the direction. Something darted behind the hedges, too fast to see. A figure? Just a trick of the shadows? "Did you see that?" I asked, my heart pounding. There was something, but before I could finish, the shadows returned in a rush. One of them was taller, looming over us with unnatural speed. The rage in his eyes glinted sharp, a predator on the hunt. "Run!" I screamed, grabbing Karen's arm, pulling her away just as he reached for us. But terror surged through the air. The world felt unreality-frayed. We sprinted again, not knowing where we were going or if it would matter. The park seemed to stretch on endlessly, just our footfalls echoing against the silence. But my mind raced back to that dark figure, to the feeling of an unseen weight pressing down. No longer just a digital phantom, but a living nightmare we couldn't escape. We ran, hearts pounding, and I felt the darkness creeping closer. But just as I thought I couldn't keep going, we burst through the park's outer edge, the sounds of the city alive beyond the horizon. All we had to do was reach the street, and we would be free. Yet as we surged toward the light, a disconcerting thought tugged at my mind. A question without an answer: why had this started? Was it all connected to my past? Had I invited this chaos into my life by simply seeking connection in a digital realm? Then came the chilling realization that, perhaps, I would never know the truth. Stepping into the light didn't mean the shadows were truly gone. I could still feel their breath on my neck, the echo of their laughter in the distance. As we broke past the trees and into the street, I knew one thing for certain. I had escaped, but the nightmare wasn't merely over. It had only just begun. I moved to a different city after that. Sometimes I wonder if they are still out there, if the darkness still lingers, waiting for the right moment to enter my life again. I don't think I'll ever stop looking over my shoulder. However, I try not to think too much about it.